Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jersey Joe Corner. It is brought to you by Big Heads Media. It is going to be a great hockey season coming right up. A lot of interesting things. Anchor.fm will help you start your podcast and get things rolling. It's going to be a lot smoother when you get the Anchor app, and it's so much easier to navigate. Even their online website at anchor.fm is very efficient, and you can do a lot of great things with it. And I stand by it myself. And I must say, it's time to say, let's go Devils. Good evening, fellow Devils fans. This is the Jersey Joe Corner, and this is the pilot podcast right now. So this has been a huge offseason for the New Jersey Devils and the team in general. And speaking of general, the general manager, Ray Shero, has done so much this offseason, from making a big trade for PK Subban after the Jack Hughes first overall pick in the first round. And he's done huge amounts of work, especially adding Wayne Simmons from the Nashville Predators as well as a free agent for $5 million for 1 year. And you also have the John Hayden trade for John Quenneville straight up, which is a fair trade in my view. You also have the Nikita Gusev trade, which is a very big deal in the hockey world, where you have a guy from the Continental Hockey League where he's been very productive over there, and he's been very good in the Olympics as well for Team Russia. And he has done so much that guys like Ray Shero have been trying to basically get their hands on him, especially with the KHL scouts are always saying, hey, this guy's got potential, this and that. The kid can shoot, he can pass, he's smart, he can move in on transition, and this is the kind of thing that is going to deepen the top six, and the top six will deepen lines 3 through 4 by bumping a guy down each slot. So basically, this is a really interesting off-season in general. And looking forward, the Devils themselves are looking to make a huge comeback after a 72-point season, which is nowhere near efficient to go further in the standings. And because you have Jack Hughes and you have Nico Hischier as the two centers, Ray Shero has his Crosby-Malkin type combo, if you think about it in Penguins terms, from Shero. And then you have Travis Zajac, who is the center, who could be on the third line. And you basically can equate Zajac as the Jordan Staal on the third line. And having those three centers, adding the strength and into the core for several years, and if not, when Zajac leaves, you can plug in another player. And if Pavel Zacha does very well, and they re-sign him as an RFA, you can do a lot with that amount of time, building chemistry for not just the first 2 years, but the first 3 years minimal to build long-term chemistry. And even though Pavel Zacha was a 6th overall pick in his draft year, he basically was more suited for bottom 6 role, and he just seemed like he needed to be gelled in on a different line. And so if we think about the wingers for a second, Kyle Palmieri is the first guy that you usually put on the first line. You also have Jesper Bratt, I would put on the second line right wing. You have Wayne Simmons for line 3. For line 4, temporarily I have Joey Anderson. And Anderson is a guy that I do see making the team or getting an easy call up. And then for bottom four center, let's call it Pavel Zacha for now because he can be a winger at times. Um, if we talk about the first two left wings, you have Taylor Hall first line, you have Nikita Gusev second line, you have third line. Um, you have, I'm thinking about it now. You could put Miles Wood there, and fourth line. I wouldn't put Jesper Boqvist on line four, but you want him to get third line minutes and maybe second line minutes, and shift him depending on how well he's doing. But there could be a lot changing within the next amount of months because August is, well, coming to a halt, and you'll have September, and September is when, like, the middle of that month, you have a lot of teams getting players to camp, and you need to fill spots before October. So this is important for the team to transition. And to segue over, we need to talk about goaltending. Mackenzie Blackwood, when he got a pretty good start to his first NHL campaign season, it wasn't a full season, but he got a pretty good start, and he won more games than his general manager, Shero, could expect, especially with a depleted defense in Binghamton and New Jersey. He really played up to snuff, and he can be very calm, cool, and collected as a player. And I think when you have him and Corey Schneider balancing each other out, Corey Schneider doesn't need to play 41 games. You can throw in Jill Sen, who is from Switzerland, and Jill Sen can definitely take a little bit of the load off in between, especially if the Devils theoretically are in the top three in the Metropolitan or in the top 8 seed and they got a really comfortable lead. You don't have to play Schneider or Blackwood. You can throw in Sen to rest the first two goaltenders. Now, I haven't touched on defense yet, but I will in a moment. So, the Devils acquired PK Subban. You have an aging Andy Green, so Green has less responsibility now because he had someone a lot younger than him and someone more skilled and who is a very good veteran. And the Devils haven't had a offensive defenseman in a long time since Brian Rafalski, if you're looking at points. And so if PK Subban can score more than 36 points a season for the next 3 seasons, he can break that 515-point record of Brian Rafalski's. Then Andy Green is more of a stay-at-home guy, but he can quarterback not necessarily a power play, but definitely even strength in the offensive zone and be able to hold his part a little bit. But he's starting to slow down, and that's one of his weaknesses. But he's gotten wiser, but he has been blocking a lot of shots and being able to put his stick in the lane and take away the passing lanes and shooting lanes. I have to think about Will Butcher as a player on the left side. He's more of a power play specialist. He's a good shooter. I know he's starting to round out his defense, and he just got married this offseason. So with the contract that he already has for about the next 3 seasons, he knows he has a lot of responsibility to provide and make sure the team gets a lot out of him. And I think about the way You have Will Butcher starting to round out as a player. I think he's going to want to build up a better two-way game and be more sounded defensively and cough up less pucks. And he has a guy like Damon Severson or Sami Vatanen that can be on his right side. And Vatanen, in this perspective, he's a very solid right-handed shot. He can pass the puck. He can shoot it. He can play physically if he has to, and he gets in the lanes, and he keeps players to the outside, which is very good on the defensive zone. And when you have a guy like Severson, he's learning to be more physical, and he's also beginning to improve his defensive game. And he's a guy that was on Team Canada this offseason, so he's been trusted to play as one of their power play quarterbacks on the defensive side, and he's gaining more confidence when he gets these types of responsibilities. And I do see Ty Smith getting a lot more minutes than some other defensemen this season. He is fast, he is smooth, he's confident, he's patient. He's learning how to use his strength and size more, even though he's under 6 foot. But he's definitely growing into his body. Connor Carrick, this offseason, he too has been building up his strength and working on his speed and agility. And Ray Shero traded for him because he saw something that the Maple Leafs had, and the Dallas Stars had someone in him that they didn't think that would fit them in the short term because they were making the playoffs. And so it was a pretty good move for Ray Shero. I think with 7 really good defensemen, it's a good problem to have. To really be honest, I think maybe 98 points, 100 points is the minimal target. Having a kid like Jack Hughes and having Nico Hischier as the 2 stabilizers really create a lot of trouble for teams like the Rangers and the Flyers, because the Rangers are getting faster, they're getting stronger, and I hate to admit it, because you have Capo Caco across the Hudson, and then you also have to add the fact that they have Jacob Trouba. And so you got to think about how Ray Shero's been able to counterattack the Rangers in this perspective. And then you have the Flyers have so many players on defense that they might have to trade some pieces to get more help on the offensive side, especially with guys like Claude Giroux and Jakub Voracek getting older now, and the game is getting younger and faster, and Nolan Patrick can't do it all himself. And there were rumors saying Shane Gostisbehere might be on his way out, and so you never know what Philadelphia is thinking, and this could help change the course of like the Devils and Rangers and the Capitals and Penguins as the top teams in the East that can be in the top 8 seeds in the playoffs if the Devils and those several opponents make it through the first 2 Thanksgivings, American and Canadian, and you get to New Year's Day by January 1st. For those people who can't remember right now, that's my typical cutoff to see who is very likely making the playoffs around that time, because you have January and February. Around February, you have the trade deadline, and the trade deadline, you get a lot of GMs talking to agents and other teams' general managers, trying to get intel and see what's up with this guy and if they can pull a trade or if it's not feasible. They usually step off for a little bit, and I think over the time, the Devils will want to add another left-handed defenseman who can be more of a shutdown presence. But, however, I do think realistically, Oli Mata might be a defenseman that the Devils are looking at because Ray Shero has close ties to the Penguins, and then of course Oli Mata is with the Chicago Blackhawks, and you have so many connections back and forth that the Devils can try and pry a guy like Mata, who's still a young defender, but he's a veteran at this point in his career, and he's already won several amount of Stanley Cups that he could be worth trading for. And just the confidence in the Devils front office shows that they are giving the fans, and I want to talk to the fans now, that you are given the fact that, you know, ownership believes in Ray and they want to succeed near and long term and get the team back to the playoffs and eventually win that Stanley Cup and maybe more. So I actually feel very comfortable saying that now, because the near long term things are going to get so much better. And I also like to mention that on Anchor's behalf, that they'll help make this podcast a lot easier for other podcasters and get distributed very well through places like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So it's going to take a lot of work off your own plate, just like I'm doing now. And I couldn't be more excited to do this. And I would like to thank all my listeners here. And this is going to be amazing. And I think this upcoming season is going to be very interesting. Having seen the team, you know, not do so well from 2015 and do better for the 2016-2017 playoffs, and then not do so well in the past few seasons. So the team is starting to make strides in the right direction. It's just that patience is a virtue when a team rebuilds in hockey, but when you have the right management, both ownership and you have your player development, like you have Dan McKinnon, you have Tommy Fitzgerald as the assistant GM, you have Ray Shero as the GM, and you have Paul Castron as the director of amateur scouting. This makes it a whole lot easier when they trust their guys that they hire and they believe in. And so when I do another episode, we can talk about prospects and other players that you are interested in and many other events. And by the way, the Devils are going to do a beach party type thing at Anchor's Bend in Asbury Park, New Jersey. So there's no ticket required, but there's going to be a nice like meet and greet from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that's from the New Jersey Devils site. So thank you, everybody, and let's go Devils.